I got another thing I want to talk about though, which is just like absolutely insane. The Israel subreddit, I made that IDF TikTok video the other day. And it's basically a good window into seeing what the Axis would have done in World War II if they had TikTok. Now, the IDF TikTok is trying to present a certain, I'd say, woke view of the Israeli state about it being progressive, welcoming, Israeli women can serve in the IDF. Isn't that wonderful? Obviously, the Israel subreddit is not run by the IDF. It's just people who support Israel and people who are Israeli talking amongst themselves. And holy shit, if this isn't the most racist, fascist subreddit on the whole of Reddit, which is saying something. Like, I made a video about the UK subreddit, which literally was itself very fascist when the issue of Romani people came up, or refugees, right? But it pales in comparison to the shit you see on this subreddit. Like, I'm not joking. We're going to go through it. It's like absolutely insane. So like, I've got a bunch of posts saved, but this is just me going on it randomly right now. Let's see what they got here. So again, they're trying to like meme. Look at this one. They're trying to meme about apparently it's hypocritical for leftists to support Palestine because, oh, but those Palestinians don't like gay people. So they say Gaza State University study abroad, LGBTQ rooftop party, from the river to the sea hike, college credits for fake journalism and tunnel engineering majors. So funny. So I think this is very telling, this is, right? So Palestinians suffering and nobody is giving them refuge, Jews first time. And that's what's so insane to me, right? So here is a meme on the Israeli subreddit where people in Israel are recognizing that Jewish people have faced a similar thing to what's going on in Gaza right now, right? And they're just making a meme out of it. They're not saying, as Jews, we understand this like terrible history. We understand the Warsaw Ghetto. That's one example. And that's not going to make us more empathetic. It's going to be, oh, haha, now you're experiencing what Jews have experienced in the past. If that doesn't sum up the Israeli mindset, I don't know what does. And again, this is just like rando Israelis on social media. And I don't need to tell you how absolutely insane Israeli social media is about Palestine. And that's why people were trying to cancel me a couple of weeks ago, is because I said your average Israeli is way more complicit in the war against Gaza than your average Russian is with the invasion of Ukraine. People thought that was spicy. It's not. 89% of Israelis support the occupation and apartheid. The one common thing that unites all of Israeli politics is that they support this. They support the apartheid state. Maybe they don't like Netanyahu. A lot of people don't. Doesn't mean they don't like living in a settler colony built on stolen land. I mean, ask how many Americans like, you know, about stuff like that as well. It's the same. Settler colonial ideology is always the same. How can non-Jews support Israel? I'm not Jewish, born in the UK. I work in the medical research sector and I see how much quality research comes out of Israel. It's simply astounding for such a young country. It's liberal and I've always wanted to visit. It would be a disaster for humanity's future if Israel didn't exist. The Jews deserve that safe haven. I feel like I'm being bullied by the pro-Palestinians in the UK who lack critical thinking skills. I feel like I cannot air my views without being accused of being racist or support child killing. It's making me sick. Is there any organisations I can donate to, any support? There's so many of us who love Israel. I mean, this part, lack critical thinking, but if you support Israel, you are a racist and you do support this. It's not very hard. I mean, I know that's not the most nuanced take, right? But if you're watching what Israel are doing right now and you come out of a post like this, it's liberal. Oh, very liberal, where you're just flattening like a whole region, try and ethnically cleanse like a very densely populated area. You make me sick, rando person who might not even be real. Oh yeah, them celebrating this parliament building getting destroyed is insane to me. So Hamas parliament demolished. That's very satisfying to see. Nothing of value was lost. And thanks to the USA, the IDF probably didn't even pay for the explosives. These comments, man. I grew up partially in the US, though I identify as English. I will always love the US. My road trips, my ex-girlfriends are amazing. You were and will always be the arsenal of democracy. They're talking about blowing up someone's parliament. Arsenal of democracy. Like, how? How can you just be so fucking brainwashed to supporting this shit? So I think this is interesting because it kind of highlights the way of thinking of some of them and how they can justify their crazy like actions towards Palestinians. So non-Muslim minority groups in the Middle East all get persecuted and eliminated. Non-Muslim minority groups in the Middle East all get persecuted and eliminated. The Jews are the only non-Muslim group which is in a position to defend themselves. The majority in the Middle East regard non-Muslims as infidels or kafirs. The Arabic word kafir has another possible translation to English, but we don't use that word anymore. I have some experience in advocating for persecuted Christian communities in the region. Their situation is dangerous. I think we can portray the conflict in the Middle East as a small, non-Muslim minority group fighting for its survival. Most people are not aware of the kind of hatred and violence the infidel faces in the Middle East. This view shows Israel in a much more favourable light. The Armenian Christians, Christians in Iraq, Christians in Saudi Arabia. When you characterize the conflict as a small group of minority infidels fighting for their basic rights, people see Israel as much more favorably. But of course, this view is fundamentally racist because you're saying all Muslims are savage barbarians that will just want to kill every non-Muslim group, when you only have to look at Middle Eastern history to know that, of course, there are plenty of civilizations and societies where Jews, Christians, and Muslims have lived in peace. Like in Syria, not a great place in terms of for a lot of people, but especially in terms of the current government, it's a mixture of different religions, right? There are Syrian Christians that serve in the military, Syrian Christians in Assad's inner circle. He's a Muslim minority himself, like a Muslim sect, surrounded by other groups of people. Not saying that Syria is some sort of paradise, but I'm saying it's a lot more complex than just saying Muslims all hate all minorities and kill them. He's talking about ISIS in Iraq, talking about Turkey with Armenians, right? That's very specific context. And yeah, it's absolutely terrible what happened. But here's the thing, Israel, you're doing to the Palestinians what these groups did to these persecuted groups. Fascists viewed the Russians as like an Asiatic horde. It's how they view Arabs and Muslims, that if you don't do this to them, they will kill you all. And that is a good window, like 300 upvotes on this subreddit. That's how a lot of these people think. They think Israel is fighting a war of defense. Israel is one of the most powerful militaries in the region by far. It can easily defend itself. What it's doing right now is not defense. And this is how naive they are to their own government's agenda, even though they probably support her as well. This war is not a war. It's literally the completion of Israeli manifest destiny. They want to take Gaza for Israel. That's what they've always wanted to do. This whole thing is an excuse to do that. And if you view it through the lens of that, you understand it. Yes, you can, as this person says, characterize the conflict as a small minority group fighting for their basic rights. But what? You're fighting for basic rights against the Palestinians? Like, how are they taking away your rights? You literally control their entire existence. You are Turkey. You are Saudi Arabia. You're the persecutor. You're not defending anything. And here's the problem as well, right? So yeah, I'm not even denying that Jews haven't had like an amazing history as a minority group, because they definitely haven't. Probably one of the most persecuted groups in European history, certainly. But here's another problem, right? With Zionism, and I don't know what his name is, that Iraqi professor who is Israeli, but he grew up in Iraq. And he said he never had any issues until Israel was formed. And that's why he moved there. Because what happens is people conflate Zionism with Judaism. And people don't realize, or people don't want to talk about this, that creates way more anti-Semitism. Because you're telling people that, no, you know, as was it the Jewish Chronicle or the Israeli Times wrote that article about how Jews who don't support Israel aren't real Jews. If you're saying that shit to the world, that if you do not support what Israel are doing to the Palestinians, you're not a real Jew, what are you telling people? You're telling people the face of Judaism is Israeli war crimes. And then how do people distinguish between them if you keep saying this shit to them? Like, you aren't a Jew, even if you are, because you don't support this. Like, millions of secular and Orthodox Jews who don't support the state of Israel for different reasons, you aren't actually Jewish. Only Zionist Jews are Jews. So it creates more anti-Semitism for Jews who do not want to live in Israel. Oh, here's an absolutely hilarious one. If Israel didn't care about civilians, 1K upvotes. If Israel didn't care about civilians, the war would have been over on October 8th. This is absolutely hilarious. Okay, listen to this. I, a Gentile in Canada, have tried to explain this to many deaf ears. What kind of monster hides a terrorist base under a hospital? What kind of monster attacks a sovereign nation, fully knowing it will lead to its own citizens being killed? What kind of government uses women and children as human shields? It doesn't take superpowers to see that Hamas doesn't care about Israelis or Palestinians. I hope you get your people back. I hope you obliterate Hamas, right? So he's saying that because Hamas operate in one of the most densely populated areas in the world, and they have bases under hospitals, which don't seem to be true anyway. If you saw that recent massive, what would you even call it, spectacle by the Israeli Defense Force, like pretending that hospital was used as a base. People don't understand this, right? Just because Israel don't kill them all right now doesn't mean they actually care about Palestinian lives, right? And that person there saying, oh, what kind of monster uses them? Human shields. What are you talking about? It's the most densely populated place on earth. It's like bombing Kowloon in Hong Kong in the 90s and being like, oh my God, someone's using human shields. Of course, you're going to get civilians because they all live around each other. It's so packed together. And again, I spoke about this the other day because that Hutch guy was also saying this. Here's the main thing, right? Israel is playing a game where they can get away with this. And what they need is to do this slower. What they need is to get the UN on side, or the main players at the UN. And what they need is this political strategy to go along with it. They want to ethnically cleanse Gaza. Doesn't mean they necessarily want to kill everyone there, but I'm sure they would be open to the idea, as some of the Israeli establishment seem to be. And the thing is, they're very aware if they did this very quickly, they could risk a massive war with Hezbollah, not only Hezbollah, Iran and Syria at the same time. And then they would destroy relations forever with most of the Arab states. And also, you have the risk of Arab countries or Muslim countries feeling like they have to do something. Turkey, Egypt, despite the fact they've had fairly good relationships with Israel because they're in bed with America, doesn't mean they could ignore something like that. So what does the IDF do? Gets everyone on side. It does this slowly. It does stuff like, I read today they destroyed all the water in that hospital on their way out. Do you think they care about civilians then? Or are they trying to make them all leave? But yeah, again, this is the mindset of people on this subreddit. It's just insanely fascist. And how do you even change people's mind about this? Like, Israeli brainwashing of their own society is so insane. It's like I said, manifest destiny. It's how the settlers in America justified every single crime they did to the natives, believing some sort of shit about God promising them this new land for their country and stuff. Exact same thing. All right, so here we go. Irish. Fake Irish. No fucking Irish person who isn't just a contrarian supports Israel. Oh, what is this person? Let's just read this for fun. I want to give an alternative perspective for my country. I'm Irish. Bring on the downvotes, but I support Israel. I want to express my support and love for Israel and her people. Since the start of the current conflict over a month, and to be fair, for many years before, Ireland is always seen and we advertise ourselves as pro-Palestinian. This is mostly due to our situation in Northern Ireland, but I can see the difference. Our situation was literally colonialism. Literally colonialism. Whereas the Jewish move to Israel, what is now Israel, was literally for survival. So do not equate in my eyes. Why? And this is bullshit anyway. Talking about October 7th. Talking about how Israel works to protect its citizens while Hamas doesn't. I could go way more into the West Bank sentiments, two-state solution. I just wanted to say, not all Irish are pro-Palestinian and anti-Semitic. From the river to the sea is a disgusting sentiment. Some of us do support the right of you to exist peacefully, and we hope the day comes. I had plans to go to Israel next year. I still do. I have a Jewish friend in Tel Aviv. I hope to go meet there and hug her and show me your wonderful country built on stolen land. I hope you all remember, not all Irish people think the same. While the majority might be pro-Palestinian, many of us also support the rights of Jews to exist and thrive in a country they call home. So first off, this guy is an absolute fucking idiot because the parallels between Northern Ireland and Israel are extremely stark, right? So if you guys don't know, Northern Ireland was, well, basically, one of the leaders of the revolution in Ireland. He sold us out to the British by giving them Northern Ireland. So, quick history lesson. Ireland has been colonised by England for like 800 years, about. And it really ramped up with the birth of like Protestantism and the Church of England. And basically in the 1600s, they started moving Protestant Scottish settlers to what is now Northern Ireland to displace the locals and basically take over the land for England to give them more of a foothold in Ireland, right? So it's literally like settler colonialism like what Israel has constantly done to Palestine, literally displacing the local population, stealing their land, destroying their culture, destroying their language, destroying their religion. The Scottish and English settlers did that as well. And then you have stuff like, of course, Oliver Cromwell. Oliver Cromwell did invade Ireland and do terrible stuff, but the Civil War with James II was William of Orange. So basically, there was this king who wanted to make Catholics like equal, and the Protestant elite didn't like that, so they invited a Dutch king over to become king of the UK. And what he did was kick James out, but he also conquered Ireland and he established the Protestant ascendancy, which was basically that Catholics are second-class citizens. Second-class citizens in their own country, where they're essentially the native people, and that existed from then till 1922. I guess you could argue maybe a tiny bit earlier. But basically what happened is this guy called Michael Collins led the Republican army against the British through terrorism and stuff like that. And then what happened is the British said you can be a free state, not truly independent, but a free state run by Irish people in your own parliament. And what we ask is you give us the North. And then after lots of the negotiations, they eventually gave them the North. But while the Republicans who even agreed with this said that we wanted the Catholic majority areas to stay part of Ireland, England actually took the Catholic majority areas like Derry and made them part of the UK. So what you had was Catholic citizens who now lived in Northern Ireland facing even worse discrimination than what they had living in a colonised Ireland. And Michael Collins sold them out. And what this gave birth to, while this happened, because it was a treaty he signed, was the anti-treaty IRA, who were Republicans who would not accept handing over the North to the British. And why I bring that up, because he talks about Hamas there, it's very similar to why Hamas exists in the first place, because the IRA exists because the Republican establishment, I guess, or some of them, they sold out Ireland to the English. The same way the PLO and the secular Palestinians gave Israel the land forever. Like, they literally said, you can have it now. But that was the peace deal in the 90s with Yasser Arafat and stuff. It's like, no, this is basically the two-state solution, and we give you most of Palestine. The exact same thing happened in Ireland where Michael Collins said, you can have the North and we'll have the South, thinking like someday they'd all be unified, and maybe that will happen. But what he probably should have done, and why there was a civil war in Ireland straight afterwards, is because they're like, why are we stopping now? Like, we're literally winning and we're stopping. And then Michael Collins started fighting his own people that he'd fought the war with, right? And that's why, in part, Hamas exists as well, because people were like, in the same way the IRA existed in the 1960s, because people were like, they sold us out. The PLO, the Palestinian Authority, they have sold us out to Israel. So we support Hamas, not because we all love Islamists. Even Palestinian Christians in the last election, voted for Hamas. They're like, this group will fight for us against Israeli colonization, not sell out like Michael Collins did and like Yasser Arafat did as well. And that's the context there. So any Irish person who frames the conflict in this way and acts like you can divorce Northern Ireland from Israel just fundamentally doesn't know what they're saying. Like, our situation literally was colonialism. What do you think Israel is? Like, even if we, and he says about, the Jewish state and stuff like that, but even if we act like, okay, Israel has a right to exist, 1948 borders, that is fine. Okay, 1948 borders, Israel, Palestine, that's fine. I don't personally agree with that, but let's just take that example. Even then, if that is what the Israeli state was, 1948, it's literally colonialism to keep taking parts of Palestine and add it to the nation state of Israel. And it's not only done that since 1948, it's done that since 1967 and constantly expanded. So even if we say that Israel has a right to exist, Israel should exist as a nation state, why has it expanded its 1948 borders? Even let's say the Palestinians agreed Israel could exist in 1948. Let's say that, for example. How did Israel get bigger? Why is Israel far bigger today than it was in 1948? Literally colonialism. So in two ways, it is literally the same as Ireland because, like I said, it's colonialism anyway. But even if we just take it from Israel's birth to now, that is colonialism. And they've done it the exact same way as the Scots and the English did to the Irish people. So Irish, fake Irish, plastic Irish, and you know, this guy probably is from Ireland as well. I'm not even born in Ireland, and I don't forget my history. So yeah, any Irish person who feels like this is just a fucking idiot. And the only Irish people who feel like this are like the sellout political elite, or some weird like Irish nationalists who are in bed with English nationalists. Like that is pretty much it. Because yeah, Irish people do not support Israel because Israel to us is England. So why would we act like it's anything different? It's the exact same fucking thing. Okay, I was going to read this, but it ends with, lastly, I am 16-year-old boy. So this is funny. So this is about the hospital the other day, which was clearly just an op to try and show that Hamas operate in hospitals when there was no evidence. They had to stage it. So this says, rant about the last few days of the poor Hasbara from the IDF. I'm sharing my thoughts, want to vent. I'm Israeli and very much pro-removing Hamas, very much anti-hurting civilians. I've been doing my best to ignore the waves of fake news online and the incredible bias of international news outlets towards Israel, by the way. We have a fantastic army. These people are some of the best anywhere you find, and trust your life. Yeah, the IDF is actually the most cowardly army in the entire world. Our international communication, Haspera, not the greatest to say the least. The video that came out of Shifa and Rantizi disappointed me, as I hoped they would show something that can't be argued with, show the tunnels. Since they went to that MRI building, that's all they had to show. I hope they would offer some clear-cut evidence. On another note, I know people outside of Israel who think that planting stuff is possible, but it's not an option. Israel is such a small country. You know everyone everywhere. There are so many average day-to-day people involved there. There's no way in hell something like this would happen without getting out. Unlike the US, military service is mandatory. Anyone who is capable and required a good SAV-8 calls to reserves. The frontline fighters, 18 to 20-year-old kids, your IT guy, the person who makes your coffee, a school teacher, anyone. There's no way in hell any of that was planted. So they see Israel clearly staging this, and they don't think, oh my God, something's up here. They think, oh, this could never be fake. Because Israel is a small country and everyone knows everyone everywhere. You know, Ireland has a smaller population than Israel. I can tell you, most Irish people don't know each other. London has a similar population to Israel. I don't know most people in London. So Israel is such a small country. You know everyone everywhere. There are so many average day-to-day people involved. There's no way in hell something like this would happen again. So you think if you think just a London regiment of the British Army, even if it was made up of conscripts, couldn't like lie and hide something? Wouldn't there be severe consequences if a bunch of these conscripts went to the media and said, "Yeah, we actually staged that"? Like, how can you not believe these people would lie? Of course they'd fucking lie. They're in the military. When are you allowed any independence of thought or freedom of expression in the military? Why would you tell anyone that you planted this evidence? It's clear it was planted. It's clear. Like, why would you be hiding grenades in an MRI room? Do you want to blow yourself up? It's just insane. It was so pathetic. It was some of the worst Israeli propaganda I've seen. Even this person, they're admitting the propaganda is really bad here. And they're saying, like, where are the tunnels? Yeah, they weren't there because they're lying. And instead of realizing they're lying, all the subreddit is like, they should hire better PR people. They should lie better to the public. Obviously, we all know the biggest simps for Israel are India. And this isn't a historic thing, because obviously in the past, Indians realized, oh yeah, Israel colonized Palestine. We were colonized by the English. We have solidarity with the Palestinians because, like us, they're being colonized and having their culture destroyed by a foreign power. So look, India knows firsthand what a radical Islamist would do and can do, especially if they are a nation state, which is just really funny to me because it explains it as well. India have only recently become massive Israel simps because of the Hindu nationalist takeover of the country and the government, because Hindu nationalists want to create a Hindu-only country. And obviously Modi and everyone, they've been targeting Muslims in the country. So they simply love Israel because Israel killed Muslims. That's it. Like, there's nothing really deeper about it. The current Indian party in power was literally, their militant wing was literally inspired by the Waffen SS, right? Okay. Is Israel colonialist? A handy guide. Colonialism. had no historical presence in the land. This doesn't, I don't understand. You can be a colonialist and have historical presence in the land. If Scandinavians went to North America and settled the parts where Leif Erikson went 1,000 years ago, is that not colonialism? Italians from Lombardy go to Denmark and colonize it. Is that not colonialism? Well, people from Lombardy used to be from Scandinavia. If me and the London Irish went to Dublin, took over and kicked people out of their homes and created a London Irish colony, despite the fact we come from Ireland originally, is that not colonialism? Like, that is not the criteria for colonialism. You can absolutely colonize a place that you have historic presence in. So colonialism is when you don't have historic presence. Israel had historic presence, used slave labor to build colony. Colonialism does this, Israel doesn't. Colonize resource-rich land to exploit natural resources. Israel does do this. Colonialists do this. Had a mother state. Colonialism does this, Israel doesn't. Sought to grow empire to acquire new colonies. Israel doesn't do this. Impose language, religion on a colonized population. Israel does most of these. Like, what is this talking about? But yeah, just insane. Like, again, these people are so fundamentally brainwashed. They don't think, like, what is this criteria? Like, how can this not... If I colonize America with a group of people and we don't impose language or religion, is that still not colonization? How isn't it not? Have Muslim countries and Muslim empires not colonized other Muslim countries and empires? Of course they have. But that's not colonization because you didn't impose language or you didn't impose religion on someone else. Like, this criteria is just absolutely bullshit. And also, you can have a very unique form of colonialism because, like I was saying to you earlier, if we just take... Let's just all accept for a second that everyone agrees that Israel has a right to exist with its 1948 borders, the 1948 borders. But once that's established, you're a nation state. So everything you've done since then is colonialism. If we even agree with Israel's right to exist, it's colonialism. You have imposed a language on people in the region. You have acquired new colonies. You're doing one right now with Gaza. All that Palestinian territory since 1948, what would you call that? And you'd have a mother state then as well. 1948 Israel is your mother state. And you're colonizing. Israel literally colonized the Sinai desert. They gave it back eventually, but like Sinai, I mean, unless you are someone who believes in like revisionist Zionism, when has like Sinai been a part of Israel? I want to talk about Germany for a second, because I was talking to someone who's German recently. Germany criminalizes the hate speech from the river to the sea. Germany can smell that shit from a mile away. Good on them. A positive step in the right direction. I'm usually a free speech guy, but good. Doesn't sound like you're a free speech guy then. The real question is, what are they going to do with the people promoting in Germany? Lock them up, deport? Hopefully deport. Send back. Potentially both. Our Vice-Chancellor put it very clearly. If you are German, you will face a judge. If you're not German, you risk your right to stay. America needs to follow suit. Profoundly based German. So I'm going to talk about this for a sec, because this has been infuriating. I actually was saying earlier, I've read something recently. Someone in the German parliament put forward something where it's like, part of being a German citizen will now be you pledging to support Israel. And I actually made a tweet about this the other day. East Germany, for all its problems, was one of the biggest supporters of the Palestinians in the communist bloc. It literally went over to Angola to fight South African Nazi apartheid soldiers. Its citizens donated blood in massive amounts to North Vietnam. East Germany's foreign policy was pretty sick. At the same time, now their foreign policy is, oh, we've done genocide in the past, so now we support an ongoing one. And basically, this is what's really interesting to me, because we watched that Candace Owens clip earlier, and they like to frame critical race theory as some sort of anti-white thing, but also the main part is they're acting like if you teach children about racism, you're teaching them to hate themselves for being white, right? That's like the big thing of critical race theory. And that's not what we want. When I talk about educating people about the crimes of the past, you don't want, like, if I want English people to learn about what they've done to Ireland, I don't want an English person to personally feel personal guilt for something they weren't even alive to see, let alone alive to be complicit in, right? You just want them to understand this so they have a better worldview, and hopefully we don't repeat the sins of the past. What you don't want, and what they actually think we want to do with white people, is what Germany have done to German people. Make them feel eternally guilty for World War II, to the point they will support Israel no matter what, because they view it as both some sort of land back and also some sort of, like, I don't know, forgiveness of their sins. If you simply support Israeli genocide, then the international community will finally forgive you for the Nazis. They genuinely believe that. That's why they're so insane about all of this. And the funny thing is, I've actually been tweeting all year, I hate German leftists, because there's a German anarchist football club I like called St. Pauli, and they were backing Israel as well. And I'm like, how the can you be an anarchist, like, leftist football club and you back this? Because Germans are fundamentally just so stupid about this shit. Like, I do not blame a 20-year-old German for what happened in World War II. So you do not have to support Israeli to make me, you know, someone who actually had family members killed by the Nazis, make me forgive you. I don't have anything against you. Like I'm saying, my great uncle was literally killed by the Nazis, and I have no ill will towards Germans for that happening. Because it wasn't your fault. Most people who did this terrible stuff in Germany are now dead. So yeah, I don't give a shit. So you don't have to cuck yourself to Israel to act like you've changed now, because it makes you look like you haven't changed. And especially because Germany has an absolutely massive Nazi problem as well. So especially in the police force, so it doesn't look like it's working.